The story begins as Genli I, the lone envoy from the Ecumen, finds himself amidst a grand parade in Urhenrain, the capital of Karhide, on the planet Gethen, also known as Winter. It is spring of the year 1, a perpetual present where only the counting of past and future years shifts with each New Year's Day. Genli, a Terran, feels the peculiar chill of this world, even under a brief burst of sunshine, a cold that permeates bone and spirit alike. He stands among the elaborately dressed Karhiders, a people whose non-gendered biology often bewilders him, observing King Estraven XV, a man both regal and unsettlingly mad, meticulously mortaring the keystone of a newly completed arch. Beside Genli stands Estraven, the king's ear, a figure of immense power and obscure motives, whose presence exudes a tangible authority despite Genli's instinctive distrust. Estraven, perceiving Genli's discomfort in the heat, engages him in conversation, explaining the ancient, bloody tradition of using human bone and blood in keystones. The parade concludes abruptly with a sudden snowfall, ushering in the true nature of winter. Estraven invites Genli to supper, an unexpected personal favor that, unbeknownst to Genli, holds a deeper political significance. On his way home, Genli is waylaid by Pemerharj Rem Ir Tybe, the king's cousin and a political rival of Estraven. Tybe, with his unsettling, toothy smile, subtly probes Genli about his relationship with Estraven, hinting at Estraven's supposed disloyalty. Genli returns to his lodgings, an island, a communal apartment building, in Urhenrain, reflecting on the Gethenians' unique ambisexuality, a biological reality that constantly challenges his Terran understanding of gender. That evening, at Estraven's secluded house within the sprawling palace grounds, Genli learns the true, shocking reason for the invitation. Estraven, far from being his patron, announces his withdrawal of support, revealing that he is out of favor with King Estraven. The king's growing paranoia, fueled by Tybe's machinations, perceives the Ecumen's offer of alliance as a threat to his sovereignty, and Estraven's advocacy for Genli's mission is deemed treasonous. Estraven, with a chilling honesty, admits his mistakes in trying to influence the king rationally, forgetting that Estraven, as king, operates on fear, not logic. He reveals his secret effort to de-escalate the border dispute with Orgoran by helping Karhidish farmers relocate, an act he calls cowardly, but necessary to avert conflict. Genli, angered by what he perceives as betrayal, struggles to comprehend the intricate, untranslatable concept of Shifgrithor, the complex system of prestige and social authority that governs Karhidish society. Estraven, however, understands the deeper game, a game of fear and nationalism that Tybe is exploiting. He confesses his belief in the Ecumen's mission as a new option to prevent Karhide from following a destructive path. The night ends with Genli's sense of failure, leaving him feeling utterly alone in a strange world. The next morning, Genli, despite his misgivings, attends his audience with King Estraven. The king, a figure of raw, unpredictable madness, confirms Estraven's exile, branding him a traitor for supposedly advocating for the Ecumen. Estraven's words are a torrent of irrationality, yet his fear of the alien, of what Genli represents, is palpable. Genli attempts to explain the Ecumen's peaceful, coordinating nature, its vastness spanning 83 worlds, but Estraven dismisses it as a joke, a hoax, fearing any force that might diminish his own power. The king's most unsettling observation, however, comes when Genli reveals his origins from a planet where men and women are distinct, permanently gendered beings. Estraven, with a chilling blend of disgust and fear, calls Genli's race a society of perverts. Genli's mission in Karhide has clearly failed. He has given the freedom of Karhide a subtle dismissal, and leaves the palace adrift. He decides to journey eastward to the fastnesses, hoping to glean information from the enigmatic foretellers. His journey eastward takes him through the rugged terrain of Karhide, eventually leading him to Otherhord fastness. Here, he meets Fax, the weaver of the foretellers, a man of serene wisdom and profound ignorance, a cultivated lack of attachment to abstract knowledge. Genli, skeptical of their prophetic abilities, asks a crucial question. Will this world Gethen be a member of the Ecumen of known worlds, 5 years from now? The foretellers, through a disquieting ritual involving empathy, controlled hysteria, and a pervert, to induce female Khmer in one of their celibate members, reach a singular, unambiguous answer. It is answerable. Fax reveals the answer with startling clarity. 5 years from now Gethen would be a member of the Ecumen, yes. This isn't a prediction, Fax explains, but an observation, a hunch that cannot be rationally explained but carries an undeniable certainty. Fax, a natural empath and latent telepath, senses Genli's own ability for mind speech, and invites him to teach it, a form of communication that carries no lies. Genli offers to teach him, recognizing a kindred spirit, but Fax ultimately declines, stating his business is unlearning, not learning, and acknowledging that the world will change regardless. Fax encapsulates the Handara philosophy. The unknown, the unforetold, the unproven, that is what life is based on. Ignorance is the ground of thought. Unproof is the ground of action. Meanwhile, Estraven, now in exile, finds his own path. He narrates his flight from Erhenrain, his bitter realization that he cannot return to his home and family, and the profound sense of being branded a traitor. He arrives in Kusaban, a coastal town, where his former Kemerine, Ash, a celibate of the foretellers, awaits him. Ash, still bound by a deep love, attempts to aid him, but Estraven, consumed by his own bitter path, rejects his help, driven by a self-sacrificing conviction that to involve Ash would endanger him. Cornered by Tybe's men who seek his execution, Estraven narrowly escapes Kusaban by stealing a rowboat and, weakened by a sonic stunner, is adrift on the Gulf of Cherasun. Miraculously, a patrol ship officer, driven by a personal sense of Shifgrithor against Tybe's vindictiveness, transports him safely to Shelt Port in Orgoran. In Orgoran, Estraven finds himself in a bureaucratic, highly controlled society. He is quickly registered as an indigent and unregistered alien, and threatened with being sent to a voluntary farm, a labor camp for outcasts. He is eventually taken in as a dependent by Commensal Yegi, a powerful member of Orgoran's ruling 33. Estraven quickly discerns the true nature of Orgoran's power structure, particularly the omnipresent and insidious Sarf, a secret police force that controls communication and thought. He meets with Absol and Yegi, influential commensals who are part of the Open Trade faction, a minority group seeking alliance with the Ecumen. Estraven reveals his true purpose, to prevent war between Karhide and Orgoran, a conflict he sees Tybe actively provoking to consolidate power. He explains the Ecumen's mission, the existence of Genli I, and the vastness of human civilization beyond Gethen. Absol and Yegi, though initially skeptical, are swayed by Estraven's unwavering conviction and the political advantage an alliance with the Ecumen could offer over Karhide. Genli, now in Missionary, the capital of Orgoran, is received with an almost unsettling warmth by Commissioner Shuskus, a jovial but shrewd official. Unlike Karhide, where he was a curiosity, here Genli is seen as a key to a new era. He is introduced to the commensals and delivers his message about the Ecumen, its non-governing, coordinating nature, and its desire for open trade in knowledge and ideas. He deliberately withholds the existence of his orbiting starship, gauging their reaction to his presence alone. Estraven, though keeping a distance, observes Genli's interactions, noting the underlying political currents and the dangers Genli faces from the Sarf. He warns Genli, albeit indirectly, of the factions at play and the need for caution. The tension between Karhide and Orgoran escalates with a brutal foray into the Sanath Valley, a clear provocation by Tybe. Estraven's journal entries reveal his growing unease with Orgoran's oppressive system, the domesticating effects of the voluntary farms, and the pervasive fear that stifles individual expression. He recognizes that Genli's mission is jeopardized by the Orgoda's subtle control over information and their fear-driven political maneuvers. Estraven, in a desperate attempt to force the commensal's hand, urges Genli to summon his starship, believing that its visible presence will compel action. However, Absol, fearing the Sarf's control over radio transmissions, hesitates, ultimately canceling a public reception for Genli. Estraven, now convinced of Genli's immediate danger, approaches him directly, but Genli, still distrustful, dismisses his warnings. Genli is arrested and imprisoned in Kundershaden, Orgoran's notorious jail, and subjected to a regimen of drugs and interrogations. He is eventually transported to Palefin Commensality 3rd Voluntary Farm, a labor camp where prisoners are stripped of their individuality and drugged to suppress their Kemer cycles, rendering them docile. Here, Genli witnesses the profound impact of this enforced passivity, observing that these Orgoda, unlike Karhiders, have lost their capacity for anger, individual will, and even basic self-preservation. He befriends an old carpenter named Ozra, who, despite his own suffering and impending death, offers Genli companionship and a different perspective on life. Estraven, learning of Genli's imprisonment through his contacts, meticulously plans a daring escape. He blackmails Shuskus for information, uses forged papers to infiltrate Palefin Farm as a guard, and steals a gun. During his night watch, he administers a mild stun to Genli, carries him out of the barracks disguised as a corpse, and transports him through the snow to a hidden sledge. The escape is grueling, a test of Estraven's strength and resilience, particularly his ability to maintain Doth, a state of heightened physical power. Genli, still reeling from the drugs and his ordeal, is initially disoriented and terrified, mistaking Estraven for a guard. However, a moment of recognition, when Genli finally calls him by name, solidifies their bond. Now traveling together, Estraven proposes the impossible. A journey across the Gobrin ice, a vast, desolate glacier to reach Karhide. This treacherous route ensures they will avoid populated areas and the ever-present threat of Orgoda inspectors. Despite the immense physical and mental challenges of the journey, a deep, unspoken bond develops between Genli and Estraven. Genli begins to shed his Terran preconceptions about gender and human connection, realizing that Estraven, in his ambisexuality, embodies a profound wholeness he has never encountered. Their conversations in the quiet solitude of their tent become a profound exploration of their respective cultures, their understanding of truth, fear, and human nature. Genli attempts to teach Estraven mind speech, a telepathic communication that bypasses lies, and in a moment of unexpected connection, Estraven hears Genli's voice as that of his deceased brother, Arik, a deeply personal and unsettling experience that nevertheless strengthens their bond. The journey across the ice is a relentless test of endurance. They battle blizzards, treacherous crevasses, and dwindling food supplies. Estraven, with his innate understanding of the harsh environment and his Handara discipline of privation, guides them, often making decisions that challenge Genli's conventional logic but ultimately prove life-saving. Genli witnesses Estraven's unwavering patience and fierce resolve, qualities born of a deep connection to his homeland and a self-sacrificing commitment to his purpose. On the 75th day of their journey, they finally descend from the Gobrin ice onto the sea ice of Gethen Bay, in Karhide. Exhausted and near starvation, they reach a small Karhaidish village, Kurkurast, where they are received with a profound, unconditional hospitality. In Kurkurast, Estraven, despite being an outlaw, is treated with respect. His quiet, dignified demeanor, and his willingness to speak truthfully about his exile, resonate with the local villagers. Genli, now acutely aware of Estraven's danger, insists that King Argivan revoke Estraven's banishment as a condition for Karhide joining the Ecumen. Estraven, however, has already accepted his fate, his primary concern being the success of Genli's mission. He reveals his long-standing exile, not just from court, but from his innermost self, a subtle reference to his brother Arik. Their journey continues towards Sasanoth, the nearest town with a radio transmitter powerful enough to contact Genli's orbiting starship. Genli sells their only remaining valuable possession, the Chabe stove, to pay for a transmission. He sends a wake signal to his relay satellite, a desperate attempt to summon the ship, unsure if the message will even be received. The next morning, as Genli returns to their temporary farm, he encounters Estraven, who is fleeing. Thesiger, their host, has betrayed him. They ski desperately towards the border, pursued by Tybe's guards. Estraven, with a sudden surge of self-sacrificing resolve, races ahead towards the border fence, drawing the guards' fire. He is shot down by a foray gun, dying in Genli's arms. His last, unspoken word, a mind-spoken cry of Arik, reveals the profound, hidden grief that has driven him throughout his life, linking his final act to his brother's memory. Genli, utterly devastated, is taken prisoner, while Estraven's body is taken away into the darkness. Imprisoned in Sasanoth, Genli grapples with Estraven's death, initially consumed by a feverish rage and a sense of betrayal. He questions whether Estraven sought his own death, a concept abhorrent to Karhiders who view suicide as the ultimate betrayal. A compassionate physician helps him to heal, physically and emotionally. News of Genli's escape from Orgoran and his journey across the ice spreads throughout Karhide, turning the tide of political opinion. Tybe resigns, and Obzal's open trade faction gains power in Orgoran, directly influenced by Genli's vindication of Estraven. King Argivan, now recognizing the strategic advantage, summons Genli to Erhenrang. The political landscape has shifted dramatically, and Genli finds himself, not a pariah, but an honored ambassador. He is greeted by Fax, now a powerful member of the Inner Council, who confirms the king's willingness to receive the starship. Genli, though still mourning Estraven, understands the imperative of his mission. He meets with Argivan, who, though still unpredictable, is now receptive to the alliance. Genli signals his ship, which descends in a glorious roar and a cloud of steam, a beacon of a new era for Gethen. The crew emerges and Genli, seeing his own people, men and women, through Gethenian eyes, is struck by their otherness, their rigid gendering. He realizes the profound truth of his experience on Winter, that he has been changed by it, learning to see beyond the superficial differences and embrace a deeper, more personal connection. Though the Ecumen's mission is now on track, Genli feels a lingering, poignant regret. In the aftermath, Genli travels to Estraven's ancestral home. He is received by Estraven's elderly father, Esven's hearth, and by Sorv, Estraven's young son. He delivers Estraven's journals, a tangible record of their shared journey. Sorv, a fierce and questioning boy, demands to know how his father died and about the other worlds. Genli, though unable to fully articulate the complexities of Estraven's life and death, recognizes in the boy a spark of his father's spirit. He understands that Estraven's sacrifice was not in vain, that his life, though tragically cut short, has paved the way for a profound connection between Gethen and the vast Ecumen. The story concludes with the understanding that the bridge between disparate worlds, between I and thou, is built not on grand political gestures, but on the profound, often painful, intimacy of shared human experience.